Chapter 1. Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, the harbinger of Islam. The prehistoric age, the ancient period, came to an end with Noah's flood. Very little is known of the events prior to this. 2,000 years later, there arose a man, named Abraham, or pronounced Ibrahim, peace be upon him, a man of very high caliber, who brought about radical reforms to human life. He was born in the priest family of the Chaldean dynasty of Babylonia, Iraq. From his childhood, he spent time in meditation in order to find out a virtuous prospect of life. Eventually God chose him to be a prophet, and he was proclaimed to be the leader of mankind. He denounced idol worship, preached the oneness and uniqueness of God, and vehemently protested against an immoral way of life. The Chaldean king, Namrud, and his high priest Azar, who was the father of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, were deeply offended by his preachings. The Chaldean civilization was thoroughly materialistic, having no scruples or moral values. The king and the priest joined hands in perpetrating debauchery and tyranny in the land. They remonstrated Ibrahim, peace be upon him, to change his ways, but he became all the more vigorous in his mission. He was chastised, persecuted, and finally warned of being burnt alive, if he refused to obey them. He was ultimately obliged to leave the country with his wife Sarah and his nephew Lut, peace be upon him. Ibrahim, with his family members, migrated to Qu'ran, now called Palestine, and soon started traveling and preaching in the neighboring lands. He traveled through Syria, Egypt, Sudan, and northern Arabia. The king of Egypt gave his daughter Princess Hajara to Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Qu'ran became his third wife. He had a son from each of them. He settled his 3 sons with their mothers in different parts of the land. His eldest son Ismail stayed with his mother Hajara in Mecca, Arabia. The second son Ishaq, 14 years younger than Ismail, was settled in Qu'ran with his mother, Sarah. The third son Modun was settled with his mother Qu'ran in the land lying between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Akbar. Muhammad, peace be upon him, the holy prophet, was a descendant of Ismail, peace be upon him. Moses and Jesus were the descendants of Ishaq. Shoaib was a descendant of Modun. Ismail, Ishaq and Shoaib were chosen by God to be the prophets and leaders of their tribes, peace be upon them all. Certain events in the life of Ibrahim speak eloquently of his sincere devotion to God. He saw in a vision that he was asked to sacrifice his only son in the way of God. He disclosed his vision to his son, Ismail, who was then 13 years of age. He readily submitted to please God and his father. As Ibrahim proceeded to sacrifice his son, he heard the command of God telling him to sacrifice a ram instead as ransom of the boy. Since then the Arabs began to commemorate this historic event on the 10th Dhul-Hijjah every year. The Holy Prophet proclaimed that this noble tradition should be adopted with perfect solemnity by the Muslims. The Holy Prophet held that his mission was to revive the religion of Ibrahim, the religion of Islam, submission to the will of God. The most memorable contribution of Ibrahim and Ismail was the building of the first house of worship to Allah, the Kaaba, in Mecca, formerly known as Becca. This glorious sanctuary revives the memory of Ibrahim and Ismail and their spirit of sacrifice and devotion. This first house of Allah has always been a center of attraction for all the Arabs. A large number of Muslims from distant parts of the world assemble to offer annual pilgrimage on the 10th Dhul-Hijjah, known as Hajj-e-Baitullah. Some historians have assigned exact dates for the occurrence of the flood and the birth of Ibrahim. Any such attempt is simply exploring an approximate estimation, and serves to give us an estimation of the period. Noah's flood took place 5,375 years before the birth of the Holy Prophet, and Ibrahim was born 2,585 years before his birth. Peace be upon them all. The Old Testament says that from the universal deluge, Noah's flood, in Genesis 6-8, the three surviving sons of Noah, Sam or Shem, Ham and Yasif or Japheth, are the first ancestors of the human race. Whereas the Quranic verses indicate that the flood was sent to punish the people of Noah, and a section of the people was annihilated. Noah's flood is a turning point in the evolutionary process of human life, and the advent of Prophet Ibrahim marks out the influence of religion in the advancement of human civilization. One must bear in mind that the climax of moral civilization was attained by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He was eminently successful in establishing a model society with an ideal culture. The Holy Quran is the standard guide for a right way of life. Prophecies in the Scriptures about the advent of the Holy Prophet. According to the Old Testament, Genesis 12:1, 2 and 3, we read as follows: The Lord said to Abraham, "Leave your own country, and leave your father's house, and go to a country that I wish to show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name so great that it shall be used in blessings." Hagar, or Hajarah, bore Abraham a son, and he named the child Ishmael. Abraham was 86 years of age when Hagar bore Ishmael. Genesis 17:20, I have heard your prayer for Ishmael. I have blessed him and will make him fruitful. I will multiply his descendant, he shall be father of 12 princes, and I will raise a great nation from him. Genesis 21:17, God heard the child crying, and the angel of God called from heaven to Hagar, and asked, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid, God had heard the child crying where you laid him. Get to your feet, lift the child up and hold him in your arms, because I will make of him a great nation." Genesis 21:19, Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up and settled in the wilderness, and became a great archer. And while he was dwelling in the wilderness of Paran, his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Genesis 17:10, God said to Abraham, "For your part, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, generation by generation, circumcise yourselves, every male member of you. You shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between us." Genesis 25:12-16, the sons of Ishmael are named, Nebaioth, Kedar, Adbeel, Misham, Daman, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jato, Nephish, and Kedemah.